Okay, so what I want to spend just a few minutes talking with you about today is kind of thinking about that journey as your students are entering ninth grade and what we can do to help them build the independence and the confidence that they need so that they're ready to be successful when they leave high school and go on to that next stage of life. If that is going on to college, if that's entering the world of work, whatever it is that they've decided is the next step in their life, each year there are things that we can do to help them along the way. Oops, I think I went too. Okay. So, some of the things, a lot of times I hear, I'll tell people what I do, and they're like, oh, you're a high school counselor. Oh, I don't know. I'm worried about when my child goes to high school. And I think we do have that sense of the unknown. High schools are big. They're physically big. There are more students. And so academic pressures increase. There's a shift in sort of the social dynamics. They may have been in elementary school with children in the neighborhood. You knew all of the kids. You had those connections, and suddenly they're making new and different friendships. They're finding the groups that they feel comfortable with that may be very different than they've been in the past. They're starting to kind of identify that sense of who they are. Am I an athlete? Am I musical? Am I creative? Where am I going to kind of find my niche? And it doesn't mean that you define it just one way. You may be a lot of things. We got to start thinking about the future. We cannot wait till senior year to be thinking about that. We have to start thinking about that as they are coming into high school. And I always tell my students when I'm registering them, I know I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. You're just coming into high school, and I'm also thinking about you leaving high school, because we want to make sure in each stage that we are helping them lay that foundation, take the classes, have the experience, be involved in the things that they need to do so that they will be ready when they leave the world of high school. And their independence begins to grow, and it doesn't always happen evenly. They might be more socially independent, but academically they still need more support, or it may be vice versa. So we can't expect that all aspects of their world develop at the same rate. So I want you to think about high school as not just academics, but it's sort of that developmental transition. So each year, there's going to be sort of what I like to think of as growth stages. So in ninth grade, it's that transition and adjustment. We are transitioning into high school. We're adjusting to all these new things. 10th grade, we want them to start exploring and skill building, thinking about all the things, find your interest, start experiencing new and different things. Then in 11th grade, we want them to start taking more of that ownership and start thinking about the direction of their future, because then their senior year, it's really time for them to launch into that independence and be ready to start thinking about that transition out of high school. So let's talk for a second about ninth grade. So what are students experiencing in ninth grade? They're navigating a larger campus and dealing with different teachers. Academics, they ramp up. There's more support in elementary. There's more support than, a little bit less than elementary when they get into middle, but there's still a lot of teacher reminders, teacher support, and it's built that way. It's designed that way. Then as we get into high school, there is an expectation for more independence so that the student is starting to get some of those skills. But, that academic rigor goes up. But remember, we talked about developmentally, they may not be going along at exactly that same rate. So that's where that support comes in, that social reorganization. They may be making new friends, joining clubs and making connections. In high school, you're going to carry over friendships, but quite often your friends are doing the same things you're doing. They're in the same groups that you're in. They may be in the band because your friends are also in the band, or your friends are in the rock climbing club, whatever it might be. And this is when you're starting that high school transcript with your grades and your GPA. This is my favorite little piece of information that I share because students don't realize this. You're coming in to high school and you're creating in that first semester 100% of your high school grade point average. Then after that, it's averaging. So the maximum it can change second semester is 50%. But that's only if I went from a 4.0, I had all A's, to I had all F's, and now I have a 2.0. We know that that's not the way that it really works. But what you see as you go through this, by second semester of 10th grade, it's only changing 25%. Again, that's the maximum. So by senior year, you pretty much have the GPA that you have. There just mathematically is not much of a way to change it very much. So that's why it's important to start supporting that academic success early on and not waiting for that senior year. So what can parents do in ninth grade? Come up with an organization system pretty early on, because suddenly they've got 6 classes with 6 teachers, all doing their thing, all having expectations, having projects, having essays, having tests coming up. It's a lot. So how are they going to organize that? You all need to figure out what works best for your child. What works for one child may not work for the other. Is it putting it in a calendar on their phone? Is it creating a planner? Is it using Post-it notes that as you do it, you take them off? Whatever it might be, and you may have to try out a few until you find that right one. You need to be monitoring their grades. Now, what I mean by that is not every teacher instantaneously enters grades in the grade book. But you're going to want to make sure that you're on Skyward so that you can see that information. But be aware of what's happening in those grades, especially if you see, wait, I know that he worked really hard on that essay. There's no grade in there. Or there's a grade that, shows a 0 that it wasn't turned in. It's okay to monitor those things. And when your student gets home, say, hey, did you turn that in? And they're like, oh my gosh, it's still in the backpack. Then talk about strategies for what to do. How do you address that? How do you approach the teacher and explain that? They need to start taking that ownership. Start encouraging involvement in some activities. You know what? They may have to try out some things. They may go to the poetry club and decide, nope, that's not for me. But they go to the tabletop club where they play board games. They're like, oh, this is so much fun. Have some fun things that go along with the academics. It may be sports, it may be whatever. I find as I talk with my juniors and seniors, they'll often freshman year have tried out lots of different sports. Maybe they kept with 1 or 2 of them, or maybe they just tried them out that year and then moved on. Focus on habits over outcomes. Are you having good study habits? Are you getting good sleep? Are you eating regularly? Are you exercising? Whatever it might be, making them have those good habits. I always say having like a weekly planning routine. It is not punitive, but it's kind of fun. Okay, let's talk about what happened last week, and let's plan for what's coming up this week so we don't have any surprises, because I know you've got this club activity, you've got this, you've got that, so that we can have time to sort of have that check-in and planning and organizing. Then for 10th grade, we want them to start exploring, broaden those horizons a little bit, and also help them build that confidence as they're gaining that independence and seeing that they can be successful with those things. Again, those academic expectations are going up every year, and they're starting to find their strengths and interests. And if they lose interest in an activity, that's fine. If they have something that they like more, that is absolutely okay. Start having those conversations about post-high school plans. And broad conversations at this point. We don't have to narrow down where you're going, when you're going, exactly what you're majoring in, and who your roommate is and where you're living. No, we're just talking in general now. And students are having more social independence. They may be going places with friends. You may be dropping them off for the first time in kind of a panic. And that's okay. Make sure you have the connections. I always say as students are gaining their independence, you want to make sure that you know where they are, what they're doing, who they're with, and how to contact them. If they're going to a friend's house that you've never met, it's okay to ask for that parent's phone number or to find out some information. So keeping those connections. How can you help? So Dr. Smith talked about our course selection. So talking about the classes that are going to challenge them, I always say students should take the most rigorous course of study in which they can be successful. It is not in anyone's best interest if they take things that are stressful and overwhelming and that they feel defeated in because it's just too challenging. So that's the good thing about Buchholz is we've got such a variety of courses, a variety of levels that we can individually tailor their schedule to their strengths and interests. Start thinking about leadership roles. Not everybody is going to be the president of every club. Just like when you all talked about all of your organizations, all your committees, there's different kinds of clubs and different roles within those clubs that they may find their interest. So we think kind of long-term about what are you going to do, but in life, we are much happier in our career choices if it's something that we are interested in. So start exploring those interests. Do you like being in the outdoors? Do you like working with numbers? Do you like being with people? Do you like flexibility? Do you like travel? All of those kinds of things. You can incorporate those as you start thinking about careers on down the road. And then again, we're looking at that time management because they're getting more involved. And there's still only 24 hours in the day. So helping them manage that time with reminders and encouragement. We're trying to help them discover who they are. And this is a hard one for us parents. I get that. Rather than this is who I want you to be. So let's, look at those interests, look at their skills, look at their aptitudes, and then help encourage them in that way. All right, 11th grade. So now we want them to start taking more ownership. We want them to kind of start steering their ship into the direction that they want to go after high school. Again, we're probably looking at even more advanced coursework. Testing. Now, if students are looking at going to a competitive college or university, test scores are part of that admissions process. And we at Buchholz give all 11th graders in March the ACT. And that's a free ACT that we give to everybody. But usually our students are not just, I took the test once and boom, I'm done. I got the magic score that I wanted. So they may need to take that test more. We, on our Canvas classroom, the guidance classroom, we have information on free test prep for ACT and SAT, the test dates, the registration process, all of that. Colleges and universities don't care. They love ACT, SAT. Students can decide which one they prefer. And then in 11th grade, we want to start looking at that college and or career exploration. It is, do you want a big school? Do you want a small school? We live in a university town, so most of our students' perception of college is the University of Florida or Santa Fe, because we have those here. So thinking about, do you want the big experience or do you want a four-year university that's smaller? We have Bright Futures, which for many of our students helps to pay all or most of their tuition if they go to a public college or university here in Florida. But sometimes their dreams are far, far away. That's fine, but start having some realistic conversations about the difference between in-state and Bright Futures paying for it versus out of state, which is usually about 4 times the in-state tuition. And is that a realistic goal? I don't want students to have their heart set that I am going to Colorado and going to become a snow skier and go to the University of Colorado when financially that's just not a realistic goal. So start having those discussions. This is also the point where students start to feel increased pressure and making those comparisons. Well, so-and-so's taking this class, or so-and-so got that grade, or so-and-so's applying here, or they're interested in that career. And we understand that is natural, but again, we want to bring it back to themselves. What is important to them? What direction do they want to go in? And what is in their best interest? So what can we do? We've talked about all the things. We're increasing, everything's ramping up. So normalizing stress without dismissing it. So I hear you. This is a lot. You have a lot on your plate right now. So let's talk about what we can do about that rather than just saying, oh, you'll be okay. You did it last time. You'll be okay. So helping them through that process. Part of that is creating those management plans. How are we going to break all of what's overwhelming and stressing them into manageable pieces? Those large goals, I've got this huge essay or this big project. That's the end product. But what are the steps to get there? Encourage them to have some balance in their schedules. They've got a lot going on. In the fall, we have students who are in the marching band, they're at practice, then they still have to come home and they have to prepare for an AP paper that they have to. There's a lot going on. So how are we going to schedule that? Maybe how are we going to incorporate some weekend time and something to help? Supporting sleep. Our kids sometimes are up at 2 a.m. taking notes or outlining chapters or whatever it may be. So encouraging them to come up with those sleep patterns that keep them healthy and supporting that mental health, looking out for those red flags. College exploration and visits are great. If you have the ability to take your student to the schools that they're interested in, that's great. It's not always reasonable and it's not always realistic. But if you're going somewhere and there's a university nearby, take a swing in there and see about it. There also are a lot of virtual visits that students can get a sense of. It's not the same, but maybe you can't go to Alabama to look at a school. But just thinking about how you might incorporate that into your everyday life, and then maybe during spring breaks or things like that, making some special college visits. Because in 11th grade, remember, they're going to be applying for colleges at the very beginning of their senior year. And just a little reminder, busy doesn't mean healthy. Sometimes our students are so busy that they don't have that time to breathe and to reset. So we want to help them to be aware of that and encourage them to make sure that they're taking care of themselves and taking some of those breaks. So now we're at senior year. We're ready. We're ready to get them so that they have that confidence. They are ready with independence, and they're going to go on out into the world. One of the big things are applications and deadlines. College applications open usually around July or August of their senior year, and many deadlines are as early as October 15th. So you're just hitting the ground running with that. It's great if you want to help your student with the application process. We usually encourage our students to use Common App because 90% of colleges are on Common App, and it's sort of a one-stop shop. You go in, you create your profile, you select the colleges that you are interested in, but be aware of deadlines. You want your student to be the one whose hands are on the laptop submitting those applications. It gives them ownership, and that is so very, very important. You can be there to support, to encourage, to help them as they are thinking about their essay. That is one of the first senior English projects, is writing that college essay. But there's college questions or other things that you can certainly support them in that. But we want to make sure that they are answering it in a way that's in their voice. This is a time when they're making some big decisions. Am I going to college? Am I going to take a gap year and go travel? Am I going to go to a big school, a small school? Do I want to stay close to home? Do I want to venture away? These are big, big decisions. They've lived in the world of school. They've been in kindergarten, they knew elementary school. We know what that's like. Then they entered into middle school and they figured out what that was like. Now they've been in high school and now they're entering into a new phase of unknown. And these are big decisions. So help them and understand that it can be overwhelming. And one day they may be super excited about going somewhere, and the next day they'd be like, nope, not doing that. And that's okay. Just accept that they're going to have these kind of swings in their moods, in their emotions. And one thing I see a lot in senior year is fluctuations in motivation. That senioritis is real. It is a thing. And often once a student gets that acceptance to a college or university, they're like, boom, done. I can sit back and put it on cruise control. Nope, that is not, you still have to finish strong. I always say, you guys didn't read that fine print. That acceptance is conditional. It's conditional upon successful completion. And that means that you continue to have the grades and things that they accepted you with, so that you continue to be the kind of student that they accepted. And one thing that students have is this excitement about the future, but they also have this sense of loss that they're never going to be with this group of friends in this environment doing this ever again. You have the lasts. I will have students come to me and go, this is my last Monday that I'm going to be with my friends, or this is the last lunch that we're going to have together. That's real. Those emotions are very real. And we have to appreciate that and support them during that time. So what can parents do? Be very aware of deadlines. As they are applying to colleges and universities, they probably will have a portal or an email that is exclusive to that university, where they're going to be sending them updates, deadlines, documents that need to be submitted, follow-up materials. And you missed the deadline, and it is too bad. The University of Florida tells this story every year when I meet with them, that they assign students, and it's really not the way it used to be, where you choose now. I want to go in the summer or I want to go in the fall. But if they don't fill their summer class, they randomly select people to go for summer. It is not a lower threshold of acceptance. It's just random assignment. If students don't read their emails and their notices from the University of Florida to report on June 10th, and they don't report, they lose their spot. They aren't holding a fall spot for them. So deadlines are super, super important. Avoid over-owning the application process. And what I mean by that is, I do talk to seniors who say to me, oh, I don't know how to log into Common App. My mom did it for me. That would be a no. We want to make sure that you're there to support them, but not do it for them. And preparing them for independence, because these are the things that they're going to need when they're in college, in the world of work, or whatever they're doing next in their life with their time management, self-advocacy, budgeting basics. They need to know things do cost money and you do have to pay for them, and building that resilience. They're going to stumble, and they've got to, know that they've got that inner strength to get back up. So let's talk kind of some general things at any stage. We talked about planners, weekly planning sessions, breaking things up, email management habits. I talk to students all the time that say, oh, I never check my school email. Those are the things we want them to get in the habit of doing. And then creating some sort of a calendar or a system where they know due dates, they know deadlines. And your role, as we are starting in this process, is moving from manager, because in ninth grade, you need to be their manager. You're going to be very hands-on and very involved. And then you're going to be that coach where you're encouraging and you're supporting. And then you're going to transition, you as well have to transition through this 4 years of high school, into that consultant where I am here. I am here to provide support, advice, ideas, thoughts, but they're really the ones who are kind of running things for themselves so that they know they can do it and they can stand on their own. We talked a little bit about this already. Normalize, not minimize. I know that's stressful. Wow, that's a lot that you're dealing with. Instead of, oh, you'll be fine. Oh, it's okay. So coming up with acknowledging, yeah, this is a lot, but then breaking that down. Remembering we need sleep. You still have to sleep. 2 or 3 hours is not going to get it. Scheduling downtime. And sometimes people look at me and go, scheduling. Our schedules are so busy between practices and performances and games and this and that. I need you to schedule 30 minutes where you are just going to sit with your eyes closed, or you're going to take a walk, or you're going to listen to music, you're going to draw, whatever they find relaxing. Physical activity releases those endorphins, helps keep our mental health strong, avoid the overscheduling. And this is the hard one, healthy tech boundaries. Help your student to be able to let go of their phone. I'm going to turn it off. I'm not going to look. I'm not going to scroll. I'm not going to do anything. I am going to set it aside. And they need to start developing that skill, because when they leave home, they're going to need to know, oh, I can take this phone and I can take it out of my hand and I will be okay. Watching for those red flags. If you see that your child really is not sleeping well, even though they're getting in bed, they've got the time, but they're not. Withdrawal, not doing things that they used to do, not wanting to be around people. Those are causes for concern. Being unusually irritable. They're teens, so we understand irritability is kind of comes with the territory. But what rises to an unusual level? Grades drop, or they just sort of start to lose interest in things that used to bring them joy or used to make them happy. Academic and extracurriculars. We want to encourage them. We want depth over resume stacking. And what I mean by that is colleges and universities are looking for commitment, consistency, and contribution. What are you doing over the span of your 4 years that made a difference to somebody? That is more important, that you have 1, 2, 3 things rather than 20 things that you did for an hour. So they want to see that it was something that was important to you. Again, something you're really interested in, and balance over burnout. Just more is not always better. And exploring. You don't have to be an expert in everything. You do not have to be the best cello player on the universe, but maybe you've explored different instruments, or maybe you've explored different creative arts. And one thing that you can ask is, does this activity energize you or drain you? Because if your student has to go somewhere, they're like, oh, I've got to go to. Now, that's over time. We all understand that we have that day where we're like, oh, I just don't want to go to piano today. But if that is consistent over months, it may be time to be thinking about something different. Preparing for life after high school is, executive functioning. Are they ready to do that self-regulate, to manage themselves, to have good decision making? Are they ready to advocate for themselves? Because we can't go to college with them. We can't go to work with them. Decision making, dealing with setbacks. Our kids fall down, and when they're little, they skin their knee, and we get up and wipe it off, put a Band-Aid on it. We say, you're going to be okay. Well, there's bigger setbacks as they get older, but we have been encouraging them all along to know and build that confidence that they can get up and they can deal with that. That financial literacy, always important, and communication skills, because what we want to do is raise a capable young adult, not just a strong applicant. Okay, so here's what you guys need to think about. You're supervising in 9th grade, you're guiding in 10th grade, you're coaching in 11th grade, and you're consulting in 12th grade, because we're building that confidence and that competence. Okay, these are the pitfalls. It's easy to fall in. Trust me, comparing our children, that's a hard one. Well, your sister took this class, or your brother loved this activity. It's all about what they're finding as they're growing and developing and getting more independent. We don't have to solve problems too quickly. Sometimes the best solutions take some time, and the best learning comes when they solve the problem themselves. We've talked about the overscheduling, avoid equating worth with performance. There is that old, what you really tried hard. I really appreciate the effort you put in there. And don't wait too long. Remember those red flags. If you have concerns, reach out to a school counselor, the teacher, your pediatrician, your mental health advisor, whatever it might be. And when do we reach out? We talked about before: grades drop, emotional distress, social withdrawal, motivation, or you feel stuck as a parent. Early support is prevention, not reactive. And what do your students need most? They need stability and encouragement. They need boundaries. They can't just do whatever, whenever. They need belief in their growth. And that's a big message, that you believe in them. You believe that they can do things, and a safe space to fail and learn. We're not going to be perfect all the way. So we want to avoid perfection, pressure, and comparisons. And here's my final message. High school is not a performance. It is a process, and it's a process that we all go through.